You're very welcome back. Now, listening to podcasts has become a part of a lot of people's daily routine, but just what impact is listening to them having on our brains?
Here to tell us more is neuroscientist Dr. Sabina Brennan. Sabina, lovely to see you.
Yeah, lovely to see you too.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
Are you a podcast fan or listener yourself?
Don't listen to podcasts, listen to audiobooks. I have a podcast.
Right, but the irony. The irony.
The irony, I don't listen very much.
She's here to warn us about podcasts and encourage...
No.
Well,
benefits and
we can get into it. Basically, we're looking at the statistics. The popularity of podcasts has exploded 139%. Over the last few years. Are there benefits, first of all, to listening to podcasts?
There are benefits to listening to podcasts. And I think a lot of that acceleration in listenership occurred during COVID, you know, when we were really isolated. So there's the benefit of companionship and letting people feel less isolated and less lonely. And that's good because we know feelings of social isolation are not good for our brain health or our mental health. So that's one kind of positive. Another positive, actually, there's cognitive benefits, you know, benefits for how your brain function. Because when you listen to podcasts, it can be mentally stimulating. That's really important for brain health. Learning new things. It also can spark curiosity. And when you satisfy curiosity and learn new things, that promotes neuroplasticity in your brain, which underlines brain health. You know, it's one of the key things you want to do is grow new connections in your brain, etc. So other benefits are, and I mean, this all is dependent on the quality and the type of podcast that you're listening to. So mental health podcasts, for example, you know, they have benefit. They can help people feel less alone or, you know, a sense of community. Oh, other people are experiencing what I'm experiencing. And if they're a good podcast, it can help people find solutions or, you know, suggest that, you know, it's okay to talk or whatever, and can also help reduce stigma. So they're kind of all the good things.
But when it comes to consuming maybe the less mentally stimulating stuff, if podcasts are just a soundtrack to your day, you're dependent on them, you feel like that it's too quiet without them. If you're listening to them going to sleep, for example, which a lot of people are, that surely must have some negative.
Yeah, no, there are. I mean, and there is sort of some evidence that people listen extensively to podcasts, you know.
Really?
I think I was kind of looking up some stats actually in the States. And now it's hard to tease these apart because they don't, you know, indicate whether the person is listening occasionally or whatever. But basically, in the US, I think it's something like 64% of people have listened to podcasts. That's where you kind of can't tease apart. In Ireland, that goes up to 72%. So we're quite big into the podcast kind of thing. And then in the US, those people who listen tend to listen about 103 minutes a day. Ireland, we're about 48 minutes a day. So, you know, it's kind of interesting. But, kind of excessive listening can negatively impact on your cognitive function. So you can experience overload, overwhelm. And if you're constantly, as you said, that sort of constant background listening, your brain needs breaks. Your brain can't constantly take information. It needs some downtime to process that information, to evaluate that information, to filter that information. What's rubbish? What do I need to keep? To start the memory-making process. So if you're constantly listening, it can really impact negatively on things like your ability to make decisions, your ability to learn new information and to retain information. So you really need to have those periods of downtime. And as you mentioned there, like a lot of people do seem to use podcasts as a sort of go to sleep. Now, I'm sure someone who's invested loads of time like me, and, you know, when you're doing a podcast, you think, oh, they use me to nod off asleep.
It's a bit of an insult.
It kind of is, but there are, as you know, I mean, Jamie Dornan is one of the voices on, you know, there's podcasts which are their apps which are designed to lull you to sleep, and that's kind of different. If you are listening to kind of a gentle podcast or whatever, it can serve multiple benefits. Yes, it can lull you to sleep. It can prevent you from going into that kind of mental spiral of going over things or worrying about things and ruminating. So that kind of helps. But it's not going to be helpful. I mean, I have to say, if I do listen to podcasts, I tend to kind of go for the the serial killer ones and the
I'm
gory
with you there.
ones.
I'm with you there
You know,
completely.
and
What kind of quality of sleep are you getting if you're listening to that for the 20 minutes?
no,
free
but you see,
sleep
that's
at night?
really, really quite interesting, because it's not about always about the quantity of sleep, it's the quality of sleep you need. So you need to go into very deep stages of sleep to get restorative sleep, and for that, those memories to be consolidated and then linked with your existing knowledge and experience so that you benefit from it and kind of use it. So if you're, say, listening to a podcast and it disrupts and you have disruptive dreams, which I've had sometimes listening to some of those, or if you fall asleep and there's just the noise kind of going in the background, the golden rule for quality sleep is a dark room and silence. So it may interfere with your ability to go into that deep sleep. Also, if suddenly an ad comes on or a different podcast,
Scare the you-know-what out of you.
yeah, you just kind of jump up and can, anything that's going to disturb or disrupt your sleep is not going to be good. So again, it's about being sort of selective about when and what you would listen to, particularly when it comes to sleep.
Yeah, okay.
Audiobooks are a different kettle of fish, though, really, aren't they, to podcasts? Podcasts, I suppose, you're trying to glean new information in, and they're shorter than, let's say, if you just want to listen to your book, which can take hours and hours and hours and hours. So that wouldn't have the same kind of effect on the brain.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I have to read a lot for my work, research, and then I'm on a laptop all the time. So for me, that's kind of a nice switch off. And again, it depends. So I used to do a thing, actually during COVID, I started doing it. I wasn't allowed listen to my book unless I was out walking or exercising.
Oh, that's your rule?
That was my rule.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think other people have kind of little rules like that. It's a great way to kind of motivate you. You're hanging one habit on another. So if you're kind of doing it maybe for that reason and in moderation, that can be good. I mean, it really is all sort of context dependent. When it comes to audio, as you said, what's the difference between difference between audiobooks? And you're right, in audiobooks you're kind of immersing in a story. Reading is
world, really.
Yeah, it's a different world, and reading has huge benefits for us, in terms of visual imagery and all the rest. And actually, interesting, the research, there's not a lot of difference between, from a kind of cognitive and a comprehensions perspective, between reading a book and listening to a book.
Really?
Yeah, the comprehension levels are the same.
A lot of people do immersive reading now, which is a combination of both.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that. So that's where you listen to a book and read. And again, there's not a huge difference in terms... Now, a lot of people say they feel like they get more out of it, doing the both. There's a slight gain in terms of comprehension if you do both.
They say it's I'm ADHD diagnosed, and they say ADHDers love to do it because you're hearing it and you're reading it at the same time. It was on the White Lotus. It was a big thing.
So that's what I was going to say.
Senator David Norris told me once, actually, if you want to read Ulysses and you struggle with it, which I do, listen to it while you're reading it. And that's the way to do it.
So for certain populations, it's going to really help exactly that. People with dyslexia, perhaps, and then also people maybe learning a second language. Makes it easier, you're bringing it to life.
Yeah, that's a good hack as well, actually. Yeah. So in terms of overload, then we just need to pick what we're listening to. Be
quality over quantity. Avoid the fear of missing out that you have to listen to loads.